In this video, I'm going to show you how to install an inside zip pocket. This is the same construction for any bag, not just for the Bonnie Bucket bag. So the principles will be the same. So I'll keep it as a separate video and keep it live on my YouTube channel so that you can refer back to it at any point if you're constructing any other bag. So you're going to need one of your inside panel pieces. You're going to need a zip which is longer than 7 inches and one of your pocket panels. You won't need the other one just yet, you'll just need one. Now you're going to take your pocket panel and flip it over because we're going to draw ourselves a rectangle on the back of that fabric. And I've drawn this rectangle that is 1 inch down from the top edge of the fabric, and I've just drawn straight across, not all the way across the fabric. And then the next line is 1/2 inch across. I then fold my fabric in half so that I've got a crease, and I've measured 3.5 inches from that fold to the edge and drawn another line just there. Same again for the other side, 3.5 inches across, a line down, creating that rectangle. I'm then going to take this rectangle across to my lining fabric. And because I know a zip is going to run across the top, and I also know that I want the bottom of my pocket panel to be at least a couple of inches away from the bottom, I'm going to place this 2.5 inches down from the top edge. So that isn't the actual fabric that I've cut, it's the first line of my zipped up pocket. It's 2.5 inches. No, it's not. Get the ruler straight. See, we all make mistakes. Love it. See, 1, 2, that's 3 inches. I don't want 3 inches. I want 2.5. There we go. Back up she goes. And I'm just going to check that that is then centered in the fabric. That's 4 there. And it's 4 there. If you're not sure if it is or not, you could always fold this fabric in half first to find a center point to refer to when you're actually placing your pocket panel here. And you're going to want to place that pocket panel right side down, wrong side up, so that you can actually physically see the rectangle. I'm now going to pin that in place. And I'm going to keep away from that box. I don't want to pin sort of on that box, I just want to pin the fabric to the actual fabric. It's just purely to stop it moving. And then I'm going to sew along that line, not across, over, away, not in the middle, but actually on that line. And I normally start about a couple of inches away from the actual corner, because if I back tack there at the start and finish, it creates a bit of a bulk which kind of prevents from getting a nice crisp turn. So I'll start stitching about here. I'll run my stitching all the way down about a stitch length of 2.5. I'll leave my needle down as I pivot and turn the fabric. I'll come down here, same again, needle down and pivot, across, up, and then back tack just about there. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and complete that sewing task to show you the next stage. Now that I've brought this back from the sewing machine, I've sewn in black thread purely so that you can see it on the videos, but ideally you want to sew in matching thread so that you don't see any visible stitching when we come to turn it. So now that I've sewn that box, I'm now going to draw a line down the centre, and because the box is 1/2 inch, that line in the centre will be at 1/4 inch. So I'll just double check that measurement, 1/4 inch, just straight across. Now, before you get to the edge, you're going to want to draw yourself a triangle. Hopefully you can just about make that out on video, and the same again on the other side. Now that you've drawn that triangle, you're going to take a pair of scissors or a seam ripper and cut down that line, which feels very horrible at this point because you've done all that work. But now that I've got it going, I'm going to put my scissors in and I'm going to cut as carefully as I can down that line, and I'm going to stop at that point of the triangle and clip in. I don't want to cut through the stitching, but I do want to get as close as the stitching. See, I've cut through the stitching, but not a problem. I'll show you how to rectify that in a second. Happens to the best of us. So I'm going to carry on cutting down the other side, being extra careful this time, Maybe I should put my glasses on. There we go. And clip into that one just there. These scissors are just super sharp. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to unpick 3 of those stitches and that line just there. I'm just going to continue that line ever so slightly across there. So I'll bring that back once I've unpicked it. I've now unpicked that line, created a new one, and as you can tell, it doesn't really affect the look of it or how it's going to work. But now that I've sewn that up, we're now going to take this fabric and post it through that box that you've created. So I'm going to kind of pin at intervals and clip, because I know because of the fleece and because of the woven interfacing, it's going to kind of want to fight to return back through the hole I've just pushed it through. So carry on pushing the fabric through on both sides, and once you've got that fabric through, and kind of, you know, sort of, if you find that the corner isn't becoming neat, it may be because you've not clipped in far enough, so you might just want to kind of snip in ever so slightly a bit more. I'm going to clip that one down. I'm then going to clip that down as well, or pin if you've got pins. I think you get the idea. So what I'm going to do now is take this to the iron. I'm going to use a pressing cloth because this fleece will melt, and I'm going to iron that so I've got a crisp, nice and neat kind of letterbox style opening, and then I'll bring it back to show you how to attach the zip. And I brought this back from the iron where I've given it a good press to create that post box. Now I've also pinned it in a few places just purely to try and stop that fabric trying to force its way back through until I've stitched the zip in place. To stitch the zip in place, I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to use some very sort of cheap sort of glue. It's not the best. I would probably recommend a glue quilter's pen, as the glue in that tends to be a lot better, but if you've got some glue to hand, great. If not, you can always use some pins. So I'm now going to place the zip right side down and give it a firm press to where I've kind of put that glue. It's washable, and it also, once it dries, it's not seen at all, and it doesn't affect it. It's just enough to hold it in place while we stitch it. And lo and behold, I've put the zip on the wrong side. I actually want my zip on the right hand side, so I'm going to flip that back. Hence why I love using glue, because you can just take it off quite easily, press it back into place, and then flip it over. You don't have to use glue, you can use pins, and once you've kind of positioned it so that your zip is running central, we're going to stitch this in place. Now before I get to the point where the zip is, I want to bring that in, so I'm going to start stitching about here and about 1/8 of an inch in. I'm going to stitch all the way across so that most of the box has been caught and won't shift. I'm then going to peel this back and bring the zip ahead into view, so I know it's not going to be sewn out of reach. Done it myself many a time, and I will continue to do it in the future, no doubt. So I'm now going to sew all that in place and then bring it back. I've now attached the zip, and I've left the long end still attached because I like to kind of cut them off once I've actually put on the back of the pocket. If I cut them off too soon, I tend to kind of miss catching it in the seam, and I don't like my zips to be raw inside the purse. Again, it's just ways of working. We all have unique ways of working, to say the least. So to attach the next part, which is finishing this off, you're going to take your lining panel and flip that over so that you have the inside pocket right side facing up. You'll want to take your other pocket panel and lay that right side facing down. And then we're going to pin that in place. And I've just remembered I've left those pin-ins, which is handy because I can then use them, because I only want to pin the fabric, the lining fabric, to the actual purse, the zip pocket inside. I don't want to sew or attach it to the actual lining itself, which has got the fleece on. So I'm just going to carry on pinning round. There we go, one there, sneaky, and then that one. Oh, nope, there's another one. There we go. So what you should have is a pocket at the moment that will sit freely away from your actual fleece, because we're now going to sew that closed, and we're going to start from one edge and we're going to fold all the lining out the way, so fold it in on itself. And I find the easiest way to sew, to make sure I don't accidentally sew my lining, is when I come to sew my zip pocket shut, I fold all my lining fabric up towards me and I sew from this side so that I can actually see if I'm actually going to accidentally catch any of the fabric. So I'm just going to kind of reposition this better in a second, but you're going to sew all the way across the top, down the bottom and through the bottom there. Now that I've brought this back from the sewing machine, where I've stitched around all 4 sides, I now feel it's safe. I don't know why, I feel it's safe at this point, but I do, to actually clip and cut the excess zip away. And then the final bit is just to check that it all still works and I can actually get inside.